listening to Pro Booth Talk, photo booth insight, tips, and banter recorded by boothers for boothers. Brought to you by ProBoothTalk.com.
Welcome back to Pro Booth Talk, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
How's things going with you, Lap? You have a good weekend?
It's going good.
So how are you with procrastination? Are you a procrastinator?
You know what? It's hard to say if I'm a procrastinator. I used to think I was, but I also think that being a mom, it's hard to gauge if I'm procrastinating. Since I'm a mom during the day and I work at night, I know you have, your own situation where you have a whole staff that runs during the day. I don't really have that. So I don't know if I procrastinate, Jason. It's hard to say. I feel like it's juggling me being a mom and me being a business owner.
I feel like if you're questioning it, then you probably aren't. I can't say conclusively, of course, but I feel like procrastinators know they're procrastinators, and they probably hear it from their spouses and have heard it throughout their entire life from teachers or whatever. Because I'm a procrastinator, and I know that I'm a procrastinator. I'm very. I used to say I could write a book on procrastination, but I'd never get around to it. Everything about procrastination is very relatable to me, unfortunately.
Yeah, what topics, what have you read about like telltale signs? Because I can tell you, I think if you're talking about your history when you're younger through school, I probably have procrastination tendencies. I work better under pressure. I mean, do you have like a bullet list of telltale?
No, but I feel like the term "I work better under pressure." I could be wrong here, but I feel like that is a typical hallmark of the procrastinator. Something they like to say because, I mean, sure, everybody works more efficiently when there's a deadline, and that's why deadlines are important. But I mean, if you're able to work efficiently enough that you're not always up against a deadline, I think ultimately you're going to yield better results. Even if you are working more efficiently, I mean, it's always better to get done first and be able to troubleshoot and have put more thought and creativity into a project, I think.
Yeah, but I feel like in my situation, it's a lot different since we get so many things last minute. I struggle with balancing, like going into logistics and scheduling staff is stuff that I try to push last minute just because I don't know if I'm going to end up with the one event for the weekend or if we're going to end up with 8. So it's very gray area for me.
But I mean, I procrastinate like literally everywhere in my life. Like I love sleeping. I want to sleep all the time. But I procrastinate going to sleep. Like I do things I don't need to do. I create projects in my head to stay awake. Like I just seem to put everything off for some reason. And
you can't procrastinate sleeping. No.
I think it is a thing.
That's just the entrepreneurial spirit where you just want to be productive. I don't think that's procrastination though, Jason. I think that's just you wanting to be productive and not wanting to shut down. I feel like for many years, I felt like sleep was like wasting away my time. Like there's so many other things that I could do instead of sleeping. Like,
sure. I mean, if we didn't have to sleep, yeah, that's a lot of extra time. But
we as owners, like I feel like we as owners have to convince ourselves and force ourselves to go to sleep because we would rather be doing other things, answering emails, putting out presentations and things like that. I don't think that's procrastination. That's something totally.
I can agree with that, I guess. Except for a lot of times it's not productivity. Like I'll be tired and I'll know I need to go to bed, but I'm not. Sometimes I'm jumping on the laptop, and a lot of times once my wife goes to bed, I do go to the laptop and get some stuff done. But a lot of times when I'm like, all right, I've got to get to bed now, I close the laptop up, then I'll start playing a game on my phone. And then next thing I know, I'm on TikTok or something. And next thing I know, it's been like 3 hours, and now I only have like 5 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep or something. And those are just, I mean, there's no productivity in playing games and TikTok and stuff. But I mean, I guess be balanced. You also need to have some enjoyment. Yeah, decompression.
Yeah. Because I don't feel like we do that during the day, like finding that me time. A lot of us have that during the day, so that's probably just more so that. But I do work better under pressure. I noticed that. Like I know there's a lot of folks who talk about like events coming in last minute, like a week is like last minute to them, and I feel like, man, I especially during Christmas, I usually pump out, events super last minute. I mean, sometimes we get events booked the same day, and I honestly feel a lot more productive when I tackle projects like that. And when I have like a week ahead of time, then I'll pace myself throughout the week. But I really feel like if there is a time crunch, I like pump out what I have to do. I don't think that that's healthy, but I
No,
think
I
that's
guess
just,
not. But
you know,
I mean,
yeah.
those deadlines, and you said that you do feel more productive, and I think that's a big part of it. Just like feeling productive sometimes. Like sometimes I'll literally like, because I'm a list person. I use lists for everything, and sometimes when I've done 3 or 4 things in a day that's not on my list, I'll actually like write them on my list and check them off, just so I have things that are checked off on my list, just so that I can have that feeling of productivity, so that I don't leave the office feeling like I haven't accomplished anything or taken care of anything.
Yeah, I think that's a huge struggle for a lot of us. I mean, like if you don't, before I used to not write lists down, I just would do whatever it is I had to do. And at the end of the day, when people would ask me like, oh, how was your day, what'd you do, and you literally sitting at the same chair that you were sitting at from morning till night, and you really feel like you haven't accomplished anything, because what we do is all like small bits of pieces of work throughout the day, throughout the week, that culminate and make one whole project. So it never seems like I'm doing work. But when I started like writing out lists, just like what you did, I started writing out lists and physically checking it off so that my mind would recognize how much we do. Because we honestly wear a lot of hats, and we don't even realize that we do it, because we're so programmed to just do the things that we have to do. I mean, we're not just working on logistics. We're not just working with like with your staff, like you're contacting your staff throughout the day, communicating with them, on top of like emailing clients, working on logistics, figuring out your R&D in your mind, because my mind is always thinking about like how to improve whatever process I have. So we're working on a whole lot of things all at once. But if you're not writing it down, then you start to question like, am I wasting away my day? But we really do so much. I feel like we do 10 to 15 people's jobs in one day. We just don't realize it until you start writing off that list and checking. Like I do the same thing as you, Jason. I check mark, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this at the end of the day, when I look at my list, I'm like, oh my gosh, how the heck did I get all that done and raise my kids?
Yeah, it's a Herculean task sometimes, and that feeling and of accomplishment is important, and the being rewarded in some way. You mentioned, though, writing things down. Do you use any kind of software, or are you a notepad and paper only?
I love the notepad and paper. I know there's a lot of tech out there, and I've tried the digital checklists and things like that, but I don't know, something about like physically writing out the tasks that I have to um, undertake, and then like marking that check just gives me so much satisfaction, knowing that like, wow, I got that done. I got that done. So you feel like you're doing things. So I'm more of a physical, write it out, check it off, write it off, check it off. Even small things, whether just like you and me are very similar. Like even if I already know I did it, I just have to see myself write it so that I can add it to my list and register it in my mind. You did it, but I don't know, something about that list and checking it off is a whole different experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it just validates that you're spending your time efficiently or productively, instead of just sitting around and staring at the wall all day. Because a lot of times you can, if you didn't actually complete a project, it's hard going home at the end of the day feeling accomplished, when there's nothing really outward to show for it. But there's obviously little things constantly that need to be done that don't outwardly show.
Yes.
So
yes. So a good example of this is a software that when I have like very out of the box workflow delivery, and I have to experiment with software that we don't typically use too often, I could struggle with that software workflow for 3, 4, 5 days. and every day I'm tackling something different. But if I don't check mark that I tackled it, I feel like I didn't do it. But at the end of the week, when you figure that workflow, it really was a huge project that you undertake. You just don't realize it because you're tackling it through a very long time frame, like 3, 4, 5, 6 days for workflow,
Right.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm kind of move in between. I've tried a lot of softwares throughout the past, and I do have one that I've settled on that I've been using for a few years. But I do a lot of like writing down myself as well still. And the reason, like, obviously our lists just get too long that it just doesn't make sense to have a notebook at some point, for me anyways. And constantly you cross a bunch of things off and you have 3 or 4 things floating in that list. So you're constantly transcribing to other notebooks. So I tried a lot of different softwares and we settled with Microsoft To Do, and we use it internally. It's really good for what we do here because we can all have our own separate Microsoft To Do accounts, and I could add something to the list and assign it to our graphics or assign it to our sales team or whatever, and then it just pops up on their list automatically. As well, you can open each item up and create sub lists for each item for larger projects, and I think most list softwares do that. But obviously, a lot of projects have a lot of lists themselves. And the biggest feature for me that I like, and it may be common with most softwares, I don't know, is that there's an area that's called My Day, and you could just basically go through all your lists and see what's most important. Go through if you put deadlines on lists, they all pop up in a chronological order, obviously, of when they're supposed to be due. And if you mark them as urgent, there's a separate list for all your urgent items. So I kind of go through the plan list to see what items have a deadline coming up, and I go through my urgent list to see what items are more important. And you could just kind of drag and drop the things that you want to tackle today into the area that's called My Day. So then you only have 3 or 4 items there, and it just seems less intimidating when you have a smaller list in front of you. You could take those things off, get them done, and then go through your lists again and see what you want to add to your day for a second time if you've got more time in your day. So that's kind of what I do to kind of organize those things. We tried Google Lists because most of what we do is inside the Google Suite. So it would be very convenient to have our lists there as well, because we don't do anything with Microsoft. We've moved away from Microsoft Office completely. I don't care much from Microsoft as a company, but the Google Lists, like, that doesn't let you reorganize your items, which doesn't make sense. I feel like that's like one of the basic 5 features of a to-do list is the ability to move things around and whatnot. But there's some very basic features that it doesn't have that we use, so we haven't been able to move over to that yet. So
I don't like to organize my lists in order of urgency. I list them just as they pop up, and the reason why I don't like them in order of urgency is because I don't always want to tackle the most urgent. Like, when it's more urgent, sometimes it's more pressure on you, and there's moments where it's just so much that you have going on that I'll hit the stuff that is very urgent right then and there. And when you need that like mental break, then I'll pick like the super easy task to hit. That way I feel like I'm not just being bombarded with just so much work all at once,
Sure.
So I try not to prioritize by urgency. And going over the list also helps me like remember if there's anything in between that I might not have listed yet while I'm working on all the other projects.
Yeah. So
do you have a tendency of bouncing from one project to the next? Like, when you get tired of one, do you have like a moment where you're just like, okay, I've had enough. I'm getting like brain farts because I'm just
and just moving around. And sometimes it is a priority thing for me that I'll be working on one project and I'll have to move to another just because of a time crunch or whatnot. And also, it's very easy to put one item on your list and spend 3 days on it or something because it's a big project and not get anything else done. So that's another reason that it's important to like create smaller lists from bigger projects, or else I'll put time limits and say, okay, this new product that we're working on, I can only work on this for 90 minutes today because otherwise I'll just get swallowed up in this project and nothing else will get done and I'll fall behind on other things. So I'll put time limits on my items as well to kind of gauge that. And so the title Eat the Frog, I don't know if you're familiar or if you've heard that before.
No, I haven't.
So as a procrastinator, it's something I came across a long time ago. So there's a quote by Mark Twain. Going to read it now. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So essentially, as procrastinators know, there's always that task on your list that needs to get done, but it's just not very enjoyable. And you always find other tasks that aren't as important to just put in front of them, and just you just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off because you do have other things to do. So eating the frog is essentially just like find that thing that you're putting off and just do it first in the day
and get over it.
Thing. Yeah, and then your day is so much easier. It's your biggest thing that you need to get done is done, and you don't have to worry about it, and then you can just focus more effectively. Because I feel like when I'm trying to avoid that thing, the things that I'm doing are things that just really
you start dreading it.
yeah. Looking for things to do. There are things that don't need to be done, and sometimes they're just things that are completely irrelevant. So it's something I try to practice. It's very easy to fall away from because that's part of procrastination, is putting off those things that you don't want to do. But it's something I try to do. I had it on a paper next to my desk for a long time to just remind me to focus and get that big thing off my task list first thing. But I recommend people giving that a try. Also, I have something that I call 15-minute days myself. And essentially, long lists are intimidating and kind of can take your wind away sometimes. So I do these things called 15-minute days when I've got a day that I don't have a lot of time crunches or things that are on a high priority due to deadlines. And essentially, I'll just put everything in my day area of my list that takes less than 15 minutes. Even if it's not very important, if it's something that'll just take 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and I'll just load that up. And it's just a very awesome day to get like 20 things just killed off your list and just shrink the list down substantially. So, and they're typically things that aren't super important, so they get put off and put off. And those things that aren't important that always get put off are the things that always continue to drag your list out and make it longer and longer and more daunting. So even if they're not important individually, as a collection, they're very important just to your mental approach to your list, I guess, to just knock your list down some. And sometimes it's good to just go through all your lists, because a lot of times things don't matter anymore. Things that you thought mattered solve themselves, and you can just check them off. Or sometimes you've done things that you didn't realize. So every now and again, just go through all those lists and see if those are things that really need to get done, or you can assign them to somebody else. Like I don't want to talk much about VAs because I don't really know about VAs. We'll need to get a guest host on here to talk about them. But maybe there's items on your list that could be automated, either through software or VAs, that you can just get all those remedial tasks just taken care of, the ones that are just eating up your time. And that was one of the best things.
I've heard.
For me and my company, like I really wanted to hire a salesperson first, because it makes sense. These people are generating income and paying for themselves. But because of my circumstances, I was still in my house, and I didn't want to have strangers in my house, and I didn't really want a salesperson working from home. So I had my daughter-in-law there who needed a side job, and she was already doing photo booth hosting. So I decided to create this event coordination role and just gave her all like the redundant tasks that were eating up my time. Just replying to emails and creating events and collecting graphic information and staging things for people before they came in. And very quickly I realized like how much that benefited my business, because it let my decluttered my brain and let me focus on my business. It let me focus on sales, and it, sales escalated even though I didn't hire a salesperson, because I was able to focus on my sales instead of focusing on these things that just ate up all of my day. So I really recommend, when you're ready to start expanding, get someone to be like your assistant, to take care of all your side stuff first, and it'll just take such a huge load off you and really free up your mind and time to start building and expanding your business. And now Maddie, she's still doing that, and her job has obviously grown quite a bit, and there's a lot more that she's responsible for, but it's become one of the most crucial positions in our company, because there is just so many of those tasks that build up.
Small tasks.
Yeah, exactly. Like that position is just so important.
I really struggle with I think having a VA, someone that specializes in that. I think that's a really great idea, because I struggle with this. I do all my own back end, so I do all these minimal tasks that just take up so much of your time. So when you're talking about what your assistant does, I mean, you think it's a 2-minute project, but when you have so many, it ends up eating away your time. And my strength is really not that kind. I mean, I hate doing that office, like responding to emails that are very basic. I like to spend a lot of my time on R&D. So I really do need, I think a lot of us in this industry definitely need to look into VAs for the small tasks that we really shouldn't be spending time on. Because I struggle with this. I keep bringing this up to you, Jason.
Yeah.
But I also struggle with initiating, looking for a VA too, because I feel like it's such a huge task to even find someone to train. I know you sound like you did it in stages.
Yeah, I did it essentially because I conveniently had a family member that I trusted to work in my home, and that position just continued to grow. And once they were doing quite a bit, and the sales had reached a plateau that I couldn't do myself anymore, I reached out to a salesperson and hired a salesperson. Also, I'm not the best at sales. Like if I'm talking to a marketing client, typically I do pretty well because I can get into all the nitty gritty of the tech and the footprints and just all that data points, but I'm not the how's your kids and oh my God, I heard a dog in the background. What kind of dog do you have? I'm not that person, which is really what you need in the social side of sales or going to networking events. I don't even want to say I'm a wallflower. I'm beyond that. Like I'm socially awkward. I don't conversate well. I'm not good at, we had Shannon on here a couple weeks ago talking about the ping pong. I'll listen to you all day long, but I'm just not, it's just not a comfortable role for me to be at events talking to people. So it became important to me to hire someone to do that instead of just not doing it for my company. And it's turned out really great. We've reached a position now where I've got a couple people going to these events, and people that have been used to seeing me don't see me that much anymore, and people that just know the girls that we send don't really know me at all. And when I go to events, an unexpected result is people are like, oh my God, I've heard about you for so long, and you become almost like this mysterious person behind the curtain, and it gives your company, makes it feel larger to people than it is. It feels more. Yeah. So that was a result that I didn't really plan, but I like it. The first time I went to an event and I kind of saw that in.
It's a great,
So, and I had to work an event, and the DJ came up and apparently he knows a lot of my hosts, and he's like, oh man, we've got the legend here. I've never been able to work with you personally, I'm just like, not a legend, but I guess when you're not working a lot of your events, you create that mystique, I guess. Especially when my face is kind of the logo, so he's kind of seen that on name tags and things like that, and so that was a good outcome that I didn't expect, anyways. But as far as like automating, there's we use 17 Hats, but most CRMs have some kind of workflow that you can automate a lot of tasks like follow-up emails and things like that. But if you're not doing automations for anything that can be automated, like that's the first thing you should be doing. And you mentioned that you want to do like R&D. I think that's what most, like, my dream role in my company, and I just changed my email tags to this, even though I'm not completely in that role yet, is creative director. And I think most photo booth owners, like, that's why we got into the business, because we want to be creative. We want to run a business. Like, no one got in here because they want to manage lists all day or like respond to a million emails. So, I mean, obviously we need to get past that point. Everyone's trying to get past that point. So.
Yeah. What's helped me a lot is like designating a day. Like, I know Mondays, we have a lot of follow up from the weekend's events. So like designating a day where not necessarily whether I'm busy or not, but like I set Thursday nights for the times where I want to tackle all the small tasks of like, sending out invoices from all the last minute bookings, sending out galleries that might not have been sent out yet, and following up on emails. That tends to work well for me, just because then in my mind, there's not really me having to sit there and think about tackling that task, but me already in my mind thinking Thursday is the day where all these small projects that are outstanding that you do every single week, like invoices. Like, I usually send invoices out in advance, but there's a lot of projects where, they book you the day before. You're worried about all your events for the weekend. So you're not necessarily sending out that invoice immediately. And a lot of my clients, we've worked with them for years, so it's not a concern. It's just a matter of getting that invoice to them. I tackle those Thursday night because I know like Thursday night is when I don't have my kids, and we're not quite prepping for the weekend's events yet, so that day works really well for me. Then it's just like a schedule. You don't even think twice about it, and that's helped me so much, because now that we're talking about like the procrastination, I really understand like the dread of the projects that you hate, because you're right. Nobody wants to be working in the office. I hate it. I hate that my primary role right now is pretty much like the admin. What is that? Admin assistant. That's pretty much my primary role. Yeah. And I fit in the R&D late night when everybody else is sleeping. And I hate that, because I love being live at events. I love interacting with people. I love, finding out ways to do creative things with what we do. But yeah, I do get stuck in just the boring admin work, and I drown in it. And a VA has been something I've been talking about for, like 2 years, Jason, and I just cannot get myself to like actually, and I think a lot of us struggle with this. A lot of us know we need that assistant or a VA, but like we don't really know how to like navigate and get ourselves into that position. I feel like the biggest hurdle is that first step.
And it's definitely something we need to have a show about, because I don't know anything about it either. We definitely need to have a guest host on, because when people come onto the networks and talk about VAs, it blows my mind. Like, first of all, you have them upload galleries. What do you mean? Don't you have to upload the galleries to them for them to upload the galleries? You say they create the events. Don't you have to provide all the information to them? Like, it only takes us like a couple minutes to create each event in SnapPic. So like, doesn't it take that much time to send the information over? So I've just got so many questions for VAs, because obviously it works. There's thousands or millions of people around the world that utilize VAs. I just haven't fully wrapped my head around how to let go of some of these things. And letting go is also like I just can't imagine releasing that much control. So
the hurdle of that is just, But what's crazy is like every person who has, went ahead and like pulled in a VA, every person that I've had a conversation with, they are just, the way they describe it like as if all this weight has been off their shoulders. And I'm thinking, I want some weightlifting shoulders. So yeah, that would help a lot of us in our industry, because I know a lot of people who ask questions about VAs and like are interested. They just don't know where to start.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you currently use VAs, you feel like not necessarily a pro, but yet have your head around it, reach out to us and maybe we can schedule a time to get you on the show.
Yeah.
Could pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
You also mentioned like setting those things aside for Thursdays, and it's something I haven't really thought about, but I think that's very healthy as well, just because otherwise, you're right, constantly throughout the week, you're thinking about all these things that you have to do. But if you already know that you're going to do them on Thursday, it really clears up your mind. We used to tell people that we'd have galleries sent out within 24 hours, and we tried really hard to do that. And then it just became impractical. So then we'd say, because we've got all these events, we do it on the Monday following your event. And again, it just became so impractical. So then we would say like within the first week, and I was right where you were at. We always had like, has somebody done galleries yet? Do we have galleries sent out? But just putting it, and now we have it in our systems when we send their email out, what they can expect and the timelines and stuff. We say that we send galleries out the Wednesday following events, and it just knowing that it's done on Wednesdays, like our events coordination team, Maddie, can certainly send those out earlier, and I think they do send them all out on Mondays. But just having that Wednesday, it just takes it off your mind, and you know,
a little bit of cushion.
Yeah.
But we do, the galleries thing is something that comes up with me a lot, because even with the communication that I have with my clients, because we used to say like we're going to send it out Monday, and then we switched to 24 to 48 hours just because we were pumping out way too many events and logistics and all the last minute stuff that we have. Even communicating that with guests on site and with our clients, we have a lot of people who like reach out through Instagram. They find us on Instagram or through our website or email, and they'll contact us during the event. So something that I have moved towards is certain events that I know people are going to really want those photos really fast. Like it's usually your marketing events, like influencer events. What is that? Like influencer marketing events. Those clients, I typically try to just send their link out early. So we live upload everything through Dropbox. And that's helped me a lot with like managing people reaching out, Saturday night at 2 a.m. So like sending out that gallery ahead of time so that, if the client wants us to build it right into the text message, we can, or just having that for clients to like provide for their guests, or even for us, like if we need to give them that gallery link, we already have it. That's helped me a lot.
Great. Yeah.
Instead of like, okay, we're going to follow up with you on Monday, or wait until Monday. People for social media marketing events, those guests really don't like waiting for their photos, and our clients don't want them to. That's the goal. Like the goal is to pump out that content to promote whatever the movie or So we try to have those galleries ready at a time.
Right. Certainly, if that's the point of the kiosk or the interaction to begin with, you definitely need to develop a system to get it out right away. But,
yeah.
Well, I think that kind of wraps up procrastination. I have noticed there are a lot more people downloading the podcast than are in our Facebook group. So jump in over there, Pro Booth Talk community on Facebook, and when we have guest hosts on, we're going to kind of announce it in there earlier so that people can feed some questions. For example, the VA, if you ever had some questions about how to hire a VA or specific questions, you can contribute to that and help us create outlines for the show and whatnot. But go join over there and check us out. I guess let's
Facebook,
YouTube. If you're working at your desk and you're a more visual person, turn on our YouTube. Jump over there, subscribe, do that stuff, and also let us know about your efforts to combat your own procrastination. What list software are you using, or what techniques are you using? And I guess that's all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Help to keep this free information coming. Subscribe to Pro Booth Talk in iTunes or Stitcher Radio. And while you're there, be sure to give us a 5-star rating. Finally, watch for show updates at facebook.com/ProBoothTalk.